Make yourself in such a way to bring beauty into other people's lives and watch the beauty in your own life grow. At its core, this is a statement about respect and courtesy and kindness. So later on, I'm going to tell you guys a personal story I haven't told in several years about a couple of murderers that I met when I was in college. So just a little teaser there. If you hang with us for the rest of the this episode, then I will tell you guys a little bit about the two murderers I met in college. It's quite an interesting story about kindness. So respect, we've got to start with on the surface of what it is, right? Respect is about treating other people the way they like to be treated, but how can you learn, how can you know how another person likes to be treated? And this is particularly difficult if another person is being rude or mean, or they just seem unlikable and you really do not get along with them. And this is where I come up with the question, is there no good? Because the fact of the matter is, I'm a firm believer that it doesn't matter how much I dislike something or somebody, there is never no good. There is never no good. There's always something. There's always some kind of opportunity to the situation. There is always something good about the person in question or things along those lines. I've told stories in the past about having to deal with people being rude and how quick they change their attitude the second you compliment them on something that they obviously care about. And the easiest way to tell what someone cares about is simply to pay attention. Watch them, listen to them, just see what they talk about. Those are things that they seem to care about. And if you compliment those things, you can get someone to calm down real fast.
Yeah. And it's like we talked about last week in the live video, that where we value children at 100% of their potential.
Right, when they're a baby.
When they're a baby. And we still have to do that when they're adults, because not everyone has a good day. Not everyone has a good life. And so there's always still...
Yeah, we tend to not, right? Yeah. That's kind of the thing, right? Like, we tend to value the pregnancy. We tend to value babies, and then as soon as they hit like a certain age, we start feeling like, well, they have to contribute or they're not valuable in some way. And this is particularly something in men's mental health that's very, very difficult for men of my generation to deal with. And I know a lot of us are trying to change this for our kids and future generations, but it's the concept of hitting a certain age and then being surrounded in an environment that tells us that we're not worth anything unless we're providing, that we're not worth anything unless we're putting money in the bank, that we're not worth anything unless we are giving constantly to others, and that can be very, very difficult on a man's mental health, because I know so many men that often get to a situation where they feel like, and it may not be true, but they feel like the only reason the people in their life love them or like them is because of what they do for them and what they can do for them and what they provide for them. Now, that may not always be the case. Maybe people in their lives actually just love them for who they are, but it's just kind of how we were raised at a certain point, that we were valued as infants and babies for our potential, and then when it came to that time for the potential to begin to be realized, then we start getting looked at based on the value of what we can contribute, and that's it's not really that healthy, because the fact of the matter is from infancy on, even when we're adult, we never reach our full potential. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the beauty of life. You can't ever reach your full potential. The goal is going for it.
Yeah. And the thing is that when men, or just anybody, when anybody is put in that perspective, like if you are living through that perspective, then it's hard to be respectful, and it's hard to feel like you are being respected, because
everything becomes a trade. Everything becomes a trade of actions, a trade of desires, a trade of everything becomes a trade, and it's just not a really healthy way to look at life.
Hard to see the good.
Right. So looking for the good. So how do we do that? We pay attention, right? We pay attention to what people care about. We pay attention to how they're feeling, and we let them know that even if we don't or can't understand the way that they feel, that we still feel for them for feeling that way. We can see how much they're in pain and stuff like that, and we can look for something good about them. I have a great example for this that a lot of people who listen to this are gonna probably know. There's a guy, and honestly, he brings a lot of it on himself. But there's a guy in there's a guy in one of the private groups, one of the private town groups on Facebook, and around our area. And I swear, this guy gets dogpiled on. I mean, constantly. Mostly because he sees things a little bit different, has a different set of concerns than the vast majority of the community does. And he's open to voice and share those concerns. And sometimes he goes about it the right way, sometimes he goes about it the wrong way, kind of deserves that negative attention and things along those lines. But the fact of the matter is I've watched this guy's story from like over a year ago, starting over a year ago. And I see a lot of people dogpile on him. They call him a terrible parent. They call him all these things. But in the end, if you follow his story, it's really just, if you're going to look for the good, and this is a great example of looking for the good, it's really just maybe he's not making the best actions, but he doesn't feel like he has many choices. And he's really, if you look at what's going on, he's really just trying to fight for one of his child's safety. He's trying to fight for one of his immunocompromised children, and he doesn't have the option to say just pull the kid out of school or anything like that due to other situations and stuff like that. So I know he's kind of went about it the wrong way because he went on to the news and stuff like that because he wanted to build awareness and try to get something to happen. Now, the fact of the matter is, like, I get it. I get why people want to hate the guy. I get why people want to be angry with him and why people want to pile on him. And even if you believe something different, you don't have to like the guy. You don't have to way he's going about it. But this is a perfect example of how do you look for the good. Well, obviously, he cares about something, and it's pretty obvious if you're in that group exactly what he cares about. Why would he care about that? Well, he cares about it because he's got a child that's at risk, right? I can respect that. Like, I'm a father. I can see that as a good thing. I can, maybe he's going about the fight to protect his child in the wrong way, and it's bringing a whole lot of negative attention. But I hate it every time I see half the town dogpile on this guy, because in the end, maybe his actions aren't what they ought to be. But if I'm going to look for the good, and I'm going to learn to show respect, then I'm going to look at the fact that to him, he's just trying to protect someone he loves. And that is something that I can 100% respect, even if I completely disagree with how they do it or what they're doing and things along those lines. I know a lot of people are going to hear this and know exactly who I'm talking about. I know some of you guys are a member of that group for Tuttle, Oklahoma. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But fact of the matter is too many of us don't stop and look for the good. See, if you actually want to disagree with him and you actually want to have an impact on his life, you have to start from where he's at. So you got to look for the good things, what he cares about. You got to compliment him first on his care for his child and this, that, and the other. And then you can bounce off of him to talk about, like, look, going about it this way might not be the best idea. Have you tried this? And then that is a way you're going to be able to reach people. No one cares what you know until they know that you care. And if the first thing that you do is go, well, I don't like the way this guy talks, I don't like the way he thinks, I don't like the way he believes things, so I'm just going to dogpile on him and push him down and push him down and push him down. That's this whole mentality of thinking that your own personal happiness and success is dependent on making sure you're above other people. But the fact of the matter is the more you spend your life pushing other people down, the more other people are going to push you down. Every time you point one finger at somebody, you're going to have 5 more pointed back at you, right? So the fact of the matter is that success and happiness in your life does not come from pushing other people down. It comes from lifting other people up. Just like I said at the beginning of this video, right? Or this episode. If you make yourself in such a way as to bring beauty into everyone else's life, then you'll watch the beauty grow in your own life. So, Mr. Fisher, even without a reason, respect people's thoughts on any topic. That's it, man. Got to be able to look for the good, and that's all it takes. Look for the good behind it. Connect with that person on the good behind it. And then you'd be surprised how quick their defensive nature changes at first to just venting and allowing the emotions. And then the more kind you are to them, the more likely they are to open up. And then you can actually have a positive impact on that person, right? But if you're just going to yell at them and dogpile on them and stuff like that, then you're going to create a conflict where other people are going to do the same to you down the road, right? I mean, people want to call it karma. You can call it karma if you want. But in all reality, it's just what we think. What we think and the type of actions and words we put out into the world are exactly the type of behaviors that come back to us, right? The more positive and kind we are, the more positive and kind others are to us. The more angry and defensive we are, the more angry and defensive other people are to us. The more frustrating we are, the more annoying we are, the more other people begin to annoy us. Whatever you put out there is what you're going to notice the most. Why? Because it's what you're thinking about. And this creates this concept we think of as karma. What goes around comes around. It really just, it's not a magical, mystical thing. It's just whatever you're thinking about, however you're acting, that's what you're going to find, right? And so, yeah, man, just a little bit of respect and a little bit of kindness. So I always tell myself, when I hear somebody complain about something, when I hear somebody whining about somebody else or going on about something like that, I always ask them, 1, why do you care so much? This is another person, not you. Why do you care so much? And 2, is there no good about this person? Is there absolutely nothing good at all? about what they're trying to do, because if you tell me there's nothing good about them at all, then I'm going to say you're probably blinding yourself. You're probably blinding yourself. Too many of us want to make a decision and then look for things to support that decision rather than actually being objective and not picking sides on something until we pull in a lot of information from both ends before we make. You don't have to have an opinion on something within 5 minutes of hearing about it.
And I try to imagine, like, in the situation we were talking about, what it would be like to have no say about what happens
with
my child.
Yeah, no, I would be good and mad. Yeah.
How frustrating that would be to be told, well, I don't care what you think because I have all the rights. Like, and
then the whole town, it feels to him like the whole town backs that.
Yeah, and so you're bound to make desperate, rash decisions whenever you feel cornered.
Which is what this guy's done. He's made some desperate, rash decisions, went about things the wrong way, caused them to continue to get dogpiled on. And then I noticed that he separated himself from that group, but certain people keep sharing this stuff to it and kind of fueling the fire, And I see that kind of stuff happen, and I understand that that's the world, but that's exactly the kind of impact that we set out to make on a community, to show people that there's a better way. There's such a better way to deal with that, right?
We don't have to do that.
We don't have to start drama. The more drama we start, the more drama we're in. And let's face it, nobody really likes stress and drama. So what do they say? Don't start nothing, won't be nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't start none, won't be none. All right, so I've got another story about that. Oh, see what Mr. Fish has to say. Remember that you think you are right, but so do they. That's exactly it, man.
Right,
we all think we're right. Yeah, and think back to, and I always tell people too, think back to, I ask them, how many times in your life have you been wrong? And if someone tells me none, I'm like, okay, this person is not ready to hear what I have to say. But, normally people will stop and they'll kind of think. And they'll say, well, I'm not really sure, but I guess I've been wrong a lot of times. And it's like, well, could be wrong about this too. You could be wrong about what you're thinking here too, or I could be wrong.
Well, the thing is, we don't have to be wrong.
We don't have to. It doesn't matter.
Neither one of us has to be wrong.
No, it doesn't matter. Every person's reality is slightly different. I mean, physics is teaching us that these days, and quantum physics and stuff like that. Everybody's reality is slightly different. So to define some kind of reality as a baseline point for all of us is kind of
immature.
Well, I was going to say pointless. It's kind of pointless, because we're all going to see this in a completely different way. Now, I know some of you guys are really wanting to hear the story about the murderers that I met when I was in college. But before I do that, I got one more story I want to give before that. This is actually a parable, right? I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the peer movement, P-E-E-R. I actually love it because it fits very well with what we do at Peaceful Warriors and under the Teammate brand. The whole concept of the peer movement, and it kind of started among men, but it's spread, is this group of people who call themselves peers, and their entire thing is to study how to better lift each other up, how to better see when each other are in bad places, and how to be there for them to help them get out of those places. And there's a parable, there's a story that gets told in these circles that I've heard several times, and I love the story. I'm probably going to butcher it, but I'm going to say it anyway. So one day, there was a guy walking down the street, right? He trips over a rock, and he falls into a huge, deep, dark hole. And he's stuck down in this hole, right? And he starts yelling up. It's been hours. He's getting hoarse. He's yelling up for help. No one hears him. No one helps him. He's stuck there, feels like forever. And one day, a doctor walks by the hole and looks down in it. He yells up at the doctor in his hoarse voice, "Doctor, you got to help me. Please help me get out of this hole." And the doctor says, "Well, my diagnosis is that you're stuck in a dark hole. So my prescription for this is a ladder. I'm going to write it up and send it to the hardware store, and you can go pick up your ladder there." And he's like, "Well, that's wonderful, doctor. That's wonderful. But how am I supposed to get out of the hole to go get the ladder? That doesn't help me." He says, "Well, you do what you can." And the doctor walks on. "Not my problem." And the doctor walks on. Then a psychiatrist comes up to the hole later, peers down in, sees the guy. He yells back up, "Please, you have to help me. Please help me get out of this dark hole. I can't find my way out." And the psychiatrist goes, "Oh, well, it's my diagnosis that you feel trapped and anxious and pushed down by this dark hole that you're in. So I'm going to prescribe you a medication. I'm going to prescribe you a medication that'll help you. I'm going to write it up. I'm going to send it to the pharmacy. You can go get the medication at the pharmacy." And the guy in the hole's like, "Look, that's wonderful. Thank you, but how am I supposed to go get the medication if I'm still stuck in this hole?" And the psychiatrist walks on. Later, a peer comes along. Someone, just a regular guy. comes along, looks down the hole. Sees the guy down in the hole. The guy's like, please, you got to help me. No one's helped me. I've been stuck in this hole for what feels like weeks. And suddenly the guy just jumps down in the hole with the guy who was stuck there. The guy who was stuck there is like, dude, what are you doing? Now we're both stuck in this hole. How are you supposed to help me get out of the hole if you're stuck here as well? And the guy that had jumped in turns to him and he says, look, I've been here before. I know the way out. And I can help you get there. We can do it together. Now that was far more helpful than either of the other people the doctor and the psychiatrist, who did their job, but they did it selfishly. They did the bare minimum, right? And it took the one person who was willing to selflessly put themselves into that bad situation as well to show them how to come out of it. So that's the whole point of that peer movement, is people who have been through rough things and found their way out, being there for people or looking out for people who are going through those rough things right now. And I think it's a great parable, and I think it's a great example of respect, of treating others the way they like to be treated and looking for the good in others. The thing is until you struggle with depression or bipolar or extreme anxiety disorders or anything like that, then you really can't understand. You really can't understand what that's like. But once you've been through it, anytime, and you got out the other side, I'm one of those. I'm not out the other side, but some days I feel like I am. And then you see someone else in that hole, it screams at you to help them. It screams at you to help show them a way, because you do know how bad that feels. You do know what it's like to be ignored and your cries for help just not be understood, be misunderstood. Like the doctor and the psychiatrist and that misunderstood this guy's cries for help, and they didn't help. They did the bare minimum of what they knew to do, but they didn't bother trying to connect with the guy, trying to look for the good in the situation. Because here's the thing. Someone who suffers bad depression and bad anxiety, there's good in that situation too. There's good in them. You know what that good is? Strength. An insane strength of character. I have to say that the people with the strongest character that I've ever met in my life, and the most compassionate people that I've ever met in my life, were the ones who went through the absolute worst traumas. And they came out the other side, but they feel for others. They don't like seeing other people. Not all of them. Some of them get on this, well, I made it out, so forget them. But many of them go on to not want to see other people get into that situation. I met someone recently who had a really, really tough life that's that way, and just very compassionate towards others and stuff like that. And, that kind of thing excites me. That's really what it comes down to, for respect and looking for the good, right? So that guy that walked by the hole, that jumped in with the other guy, he didn't see that guy as some patient. He didn't see that guy as just some random person he came across in his life. He saw that guy as himself down in that hole, and he felt for that. So he came in to try to help that guy get out. I think it's a great story. It's a great parable, right? And it fits with what we do, Peaceful Warriors and the Teammate brand and all of that. Now, I guess we've been doing this long enough. You think I should tell them a story about the murderers?
I suppose.
It's a true story, too. I can't remember if I knew you when that happened. I think, had we been together, or was it just before we met?
Maybe.
I can't remember. She don't even remember. All right, so I was in college, and I was broke. Like, I went from...
That describes all of our first part of our relationship.
I went from being homeless...
just being broke. Well, that's
to just being broke in college with student loans hanging over my head, right?
Yeah.
So, but I was broke, like broke. But I had $6. I had $6 in my pocket. To me, that was exciting, because that meant I get to eat today, right? I get to have lunch today. So I'm driving to go get lunch, and there was a bit of a traffic mix-up, so I couldn't go the way I normally go on the main road. And I went around the residential neighborhoods to kind of go around I think it was a wreck or something, to kind of go around that. I'm headed to get me a burger, And I see a car. It looks like it's broke down. There's a man and a woman standing there, older couple, holding a gas can. And me, I don't know, if you've known me very long, then you know this. I stop every time. Each and every time I see something, stray kittens, people, yeah, no, it doesn't matter. I always stop. People tell me, well, you're going to put yourself in danger one of these days. Well, this story is exactly about that, okay? But I stop, and still to this day I do. I mean, just a week ago, I stopped and helped some lady. Me and Axel went and got her gas and came back. She was broke down on the bridge just right outside of Newcastle, and it's really scary to be broke down on a bridge. You know?
Gosh, yes.
And we helped her out with it. Anyway, point being, I'm the person that if I see someone in need of help, I am going to stop every single time. So that's what I did. I stopped, and I said, hey guys, you need a ride to the gas station, because I was actually kind of going to the gas station anyway, because that's where the place was I was going to get a burger. And they were like, yeah, we could sure use a ride. We'd love to have a ride over there, but we don't have any money for gas. Do you have any money for gas? I was like, man, I wish I could say I did. I was on my way to lunch. I'm on my last $6. But I tell you what, it seems like you guys need it more than I do. I'll give you that $6. Go ahead, hop in the truck. So they get in the truck. We're driving over there, and I'm just talking to them, right? I'm telling them stories. I'm being nice as could be, right? Because it's just kindness, I'm being super, super nice, and they're like, are you sure you want to give us that last $6? I was like, sure, why not, man? Like, I've been homeless for the past 2 years. I'm used to not eating. I can go another day. Like, it's not going to bother me. Besides, I'll get a little bit more money tomorrow when the mechanic shop pays me, and, everything will be good. It's not a big deal. I don't mind skipping lunch. And they just looking at each other, real concerned, and they start asking me questions, and I'm just being naively kind, right? But I do get this weird feeling that something's going on. Anyway, I'm like naively kind about it. We pull up to the gas station. I'm like, here, let me pump your gas, And they're like, no, seriously, we do not want to take your last $6. We'll go ahead and get our own gas. And one of them goes into the gas station. The other one's standing there at the pump and puts the pump in the thing, in their container. I'm standing a few feet away, and I realize they're not pumping any gas. They're pretending to pump gas. And I thought about saying something, but I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, it seems weird, and I'm like, maybe I should have gave them my last $6. As they finished pretending to pump their gas, I was like, y'all sure you don't need a little bit of money? And I pull out my $6. I was like, it's $6, man. It can get you enough gas to get you to the gas station and this, that, and the other. And they're like, no, we're fine. We got it. And I was like, how about I give you a ride back to your car? They're like, no, we'll just walk. I was like, come on, man, I insist. I drove you out here. I will drive you back. Like, that's ridiculous to say. I don't want to. I'm not gonna leave you here. We're like 3 miles from your car. It's super hot. It's the middle of summer, and someone calls during the summer. They did try message, and so like finally they agree. I take them in the truck, and the traffic jam is even worse. And I was like, man, I don't really know another way around. And they're like, well, turn left here, turn right here, turn left here. And I'm following their directions, and I'm still just talking to them. I'm just telling stories, just being kind, just trying to connect with them. They're not saying a whole lot, and they end up spinning me around in circles. And by the time I realized that they're driving me in circles, I finally was like, are you sure you guys know where you're going? Because like we've went in like 3 circles now, just a couple blocks from each other. And they're like, yeah, you can just stop here and drop us off. I was like, well, I don't think we're anywhere near your car. They're like, trust me, we're close enough. Please just drop us off. I was like, all right, well, I mean, if you insist, I guess. I'm trying to be nice, but if this is what you really want, I'll drop you off. So I dropped them off there, and I still had my $6. So I went back to the gas station because I had a Burger King built into it. I was going to buy a burger from Burger King. I buy a burger. I sit down because I have a few minutes to eat before I have to go back to classes. There's a newspaper on the table there. So I start looking at the newspaper, and front page article. There had been a string of robberies. 2 people had been killed. And they had no suspects, but they believed that the setup was a couple pretending to be out of gas, and then once they got picked up, a third person would go to the car, and when the person brought them back, all 3 of them would jump them, steal their money, steal their vehicle, steal their wallet, steal their IDs, and then beat them and leave them there. Now, 2 people had died from this. 5 others had been robbed and left hospitalized. I was like, well, it's a good thing that's not who I picked up. It's a good thing that's not who I was just dealing with, right? No problem. I go on about my life. I mean, I was like, I was just extremely kind to them. I talked about being homeless. I talked about the struggle. I was trying to relate to them. I was like, I understand you guys are having a struggle now. I've struggled most of my life too, and I was at this point in my life that if anything happened to me, I didn't care. And if I died doing something kind, I would die with a smile on my face. This is kind of how I felt at the time, because I'd had nobody really that had been there for me, only a couple of people who'd ever been there for me. And so anytime I saw someone look like they didn't have anyone there for them, I decided to be that person. That was my decision. And I've been that way, right? I try to be that person for anyone that needs a little help and doesn't have it there. So anyway, I go on about my life. Was it 2 weeks later? Week and a half, 2 weeks later, I go into one of my classes at college. It's a shop class. And a couple of the guys are sitting around, they're reading a paper, and they're talking about it. I was like, hey man, guys, what's up? Right there on the front page. Well, I didn't see it yet. They were like, hey, those guys that were doing the string of robberies around here and they killed those 2 people, they got caught and one of them flipped on the others. I was like, oh, no way. They're like, yeah, apparently one of them had a change of heart and decided that they were that they didn't like who they were targeting because they weren't targeting wealthy people. They were targeting other people who struggled too. And that person had a bit of a guilty conscience and kind of set them up to get caught and then flipped on the other 2. I was like, wow, look at that. That's pretty cool. And then they showed me the paper. And they showed me the pictures. Same people I had picked up a week and a half before, a couple weeks before. It was the same people that I had drove to that gas station. It was the same people that I had stopped and picked up. And I had to laugh. All I could do was laugh. I was like, oh, dodged the bullet on that one,
Quite literally.
Quite literally. And I had to ask myself, well, they never shot anybody. They beat them to death. But I had to ask myself, I was like, why didn't they get me? Why didn't they just, I had a credit card in my pocket. Why didn't they do their normal thing? And the only reason I could ever think of as to why they didn't do that would be the same reason as to why one of them had a change of heart later. The fact that maybe by the fact that I was sharing my experiences being homeless, maybe by the fact that I was willing to give my last dollar in my pocket, maybe by the fact that I was more than happy to help them out and go out of my way, maybe that, just maybe, that made 1 or 2 of those guys, one was a lady, realize that the only people they were hurting were people who were hurting just like them, and realize that that's not what they wanted to be doing, right? They were thinking of themselves as stealing from people who had more, but then they met me and realized that they'd really just been stealing from people who were struggling just like them, because I was trying to relate to them. I was being absurdly kind, and that is the story of how I met a couple of murderers in college.
Yay!
Hey, right? But I also feel like didn't die. But I also feel like that's a story about the power of kindness and the power of using respect to de-escalate a situation. Because I think the way they had taught before and the way they gave their statements to the newspaper and to the police, I believe up to that point they had mostly dealt with people who had looked down on them, who were just trying to make themselves feel better by reaching out to someone who was less than them. And then they came across me, who was just in that same position they were in, but still willing to give the last dollar on my back, still willing to give them my coat, still willing to drive them to the gas station and back, willing to talk to them and be kind and trade stories and stuff like that. And in the end, they ended up, one of them basically flipped, and there was able to be a sting operation, and they ended up catching all 3. And 2 of them confessed immediately, and we're talking about that. And I have no idea if I had any impact on those 2 people at all. I have no idea if the fact that I tried to be naively kind, naively nice. Now, I wasn't naive, keep in mind. I had done stuff in my life. I had known some really messed up people in my life at that time. I was far from naive, but I liked to play naive. I liked to pretend to be naively kind, and so it was honestly a safety mechanism for me, because people have a hard time hurting people who are that stinking kind, who are that relatable. And I'm really good at relating to other people. How am I really good at relating to other people? Come back to what we're talking about respect is. I'm really good at finding good in people. And if I find good in people, I can relate to that and relate it to something in my life. And then I begin trading stories. And that's how I connect with people. That's one of my favorite things to do. The more crazy or terrifying or terrible a person's story is, the more I relate to it and the more I want to hear. The more I'm interested in knowing what this person went through, because the stronger they appear to be in my eyes. And the more I would love to help them out, because I know what it's like to be there. Because I've been there before, a couple of times, Same thing as that peer parable. So I have no idea if I had an impact on those murderers or not. But that was the story of how I met a couple of murderers and was extremely kind to the point that they basically refused to make me their next target. There was never any more hits after that until a week later when there was a sting operation hit where they got busted. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you about that story. But it's a true story. I met a couple of murderers in college.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories you want to add to this or throw into our Teammate Talks episode about looking for the good? Or how there's never no good?
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of situations I could probably pull from my life to figure that out. But just to give an example, but I always try to remember that my perspective, no matter who I'm talking to, my perspective is not the only perspective.
By the way, hi, Miss Marlon.
And Mr. Dallas.
And Mr. Dallas.
No matter what I've been through in life, there's always going to be someone who has had it worse, or feels like they've had it worse, or has had it better, or feels like they have it better. And so I try.
Most of the ones that have it better don't feel like they have it better. There's a strange baseline to human perception where no matter how good you had it, we tend to all of us think that we had it really bad until we meet someone that had it worse. And honestly, I've met tons of people like this that think they got it bad, and then they met me and I had it worse. And I'd be talking about how I had it, and then they wouldn't get perspective on that and realize that they should be grateful for what they have, but instead they would just not believe me. Instead they would choose to believe I was lying. I've met many people like this who'd be like, I got it so bad, oh, this is awful, and I'd be there for them, and I'd be like, look, it's all right, you can make it through this, that, and the other, and they'd be like, how can you be so positive? I'd be like, dude, I was a homeless teenager. Like, I had it bad.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this that you're going through, if I can handle that, you can handle this. I guarantee it. And they'll just choose. A lot of people just choose not to believe my story, because they don't believe that can actually happen to people. But it happens all the time. Yeah, I was a homeless teenager. No, my parents weren't around. No, it was just me. I was on my own, right? And I've met people worse than that. There was someone I met the other day who was trafficked into the U.S. and sold as a spouse, and had their first child at 12, and then attempted to kill the guy, and ended up in juvie for attempted murder, and had to deal with a lack of education and not knowing how to read and things like that. And I know a lot of people hear a story like that and go, oh, that's impossible for that to be true. But guys, there's people out there. There's always someone out there that had it worse. Yeah. Always someone out there that had it worse. And I was one of those people. They had it worse than me. They had it a lot worse than me. At least I got an education, At least I had a vehicle to drive around in, At least I never got in so much trouble that I had to be, put in juvie or anything along those lines. So, and we've met people. We've had students who had it worse than us. There was once we once had a student who was raised in a cult, and I mean like one of those crazy cults, like
legit,
like a legit, like a legit crazy cult, and trying to participate in the real world was very difficult because she just had a hard time trusting, had a hard time seeing people for what they are, had a hard time relating to people. Like, she couldn't understand a lot of these people's experiences in life. And so because of that, she was very unique and she was very different. And honestly, that's what made her beautiful in my eyes. That's what made her strong in my eyes. Same thing with the lady I was talking about that I recently met who got trafficked here. A lot of people think, oh, well, you're just complaining, you're whining, oh, it's not true, you couldn't have been through that. You know what I see? I see someone who made it through some real nightmarish stuff. And anyone who's made it through nightmarish stuff is strong in my eyes. I don't have to like you, but I have to give you respect for the strength of your character. Yeah. I don't care if you're still stuck in depression and whining and complaining about it 20 years after it happened. The fact that you're still here and you're still moving is astounding to me. So many people had it so much better in their lives than they did and still chose to end it early, and still chose to give up. Yeah. And yet I've met so many people who have had it the worst. I mean, the worst you can have it in life, who's still here and still haven't given up.
And the thing we have to understand too is that even if someone is lying, let's say someone is lying
about their
think
past.
About the unimaginable pain that they are, like the pain that they experience, enough to lie to try to
convince you of the strength of that pain,
to try to
convince you about how much they're hurting. Because even if it's not true, it's still them trying to put a perspective on exactly how painful it is. And so you can still respect that pain, or I can respect that pain.
When I was, I think probably 14, I met
You were 14 once?
Once upon a time. I met a lady from Romania, and she was so terribly interesting, and I kind of worked with her through a summer trying to help her start to get a better grasp on the English language. That was kind of, I spent time with her, and that was, but she was telling me one time, her life was terribly tragic. Some
people's are. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to believe it, but it's shocking what some people out there have been through. I mean, straight shocking.
Yeah. I mean, her mom lived in Romania, in Italy. She lived and worked in Italy, and her dad and her sibling lived in Romania. And one day she came home from school before her sibling, and her father was no longer alive and had left a note for her to clean things up before her sibling got home, so her sibling didn't have to see it. And I cannot even imagine the pain that he was going through, and then
what she the pain that it put on her.
And like, just thinking about it now as an adult, her being able to just matter-of-factly tell me the story really tells me how much pain she was holding inside and probably hadn't dealt with as an adult.
Yeah, and it is really common internationally, but I think what really shocks people is how often it happens to Americans. How often it happens right here in America. Look up teen homeless rates. You'd be shocked. I don't know how many people I mentioned that I was homeless as a teenager to who just like, yeah, right. Look at the rates, man. Go look at the percentages. You would be shocked how many of us were homeless as teenagers. You would be shocked how many people were sold into slavery as children in America. You were human trafficked, right? You would be shocked how often this stuff actually happens. So whenever someone comes to me with a story like that, my first thing is I don't go straight to not believing them. I start with believing them, because honestly, I've seen some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I lived some pretty crazy stuff, but I've met people that have been through crazier. And, all that says to me is how strong they are. So that's something I can respect. So coming back to respect, you don't have to like somebody, right? But you can find something likable about them. Like a person who's been through all that stuff, I can respect their strength even if I don't like their attitude and behavior. I can respect what they've been through and the pain that they've dealt with or that they're in, even if I don't like their behavior, even if they annoy me, even if I disagree with them, right? Like the guy I was talking about in one of the local town groups. I don't have to like a person's behavior. I don't have to like what they're doing and their actions, but I can still respect where it's coming from. And we talked about the guy in that group that gets dogpiled on, and that comes, from a place of care. I just happen to have followed it all the way through because I'm in that group, and I kind of feel bad for him at times, how people will drag him into stuff and dogpile on him because he has concerns that a lot of the rest of the community just isn't concerned about. To me, just ignore that. That's something to ignore. If you're not concerned about the same thing that person's concerned about, fine. You can still respect that they're concerned about it and not worry about it. But so many people would rather dogpile on it and create drama and conflict and bring more people in to put that person down. And I wonder how those people will feel if that person, if they wake up one day and look at the newspaper and find out that person took their own life. How would you feel if you were one of the people that picked on them? How would you feel if you were one of the people that dogpiled on them? See, this is something I think about. I know it's morbid. I know it's terrifying to think about. But before I say something mean to anybody, before I dogpile on somebody or join something like that, I ask myself, how would I feel if I find out tomorrow morning that he took his own life? I would feel responsible. That's what I would feel. And I don't want to feel that way. I would carry that guilt for the rest of my life. And so therefore, I choose not to participate in those things. If I disagree, I don't like what a person did, fine, I disagree, I don't like what they did. I ignore it and don't pay attention to it. The more of us that do that, the quicker it passes and the less people have to see it and deal with it and all of that. But if you draw attention to it, and you start drawing attention to it and dogpiling on somebody, you have no idea the pain you might be causing them. And it's probably because you want to cause them pain. Let's face it, I watch people dogpile on that guy in that group, and it feels like these people are trying to hurt him, trying to hit him at where it hurts the most, calling him a bad father and this, that, and the other, especially when it's obvious that he really cares about his kids. I don't understand that. I don't understand that need or that desire to hurt anybody that bad. I don't care if I don't like them. I don't care if I don't like something they did. I am not going to be responsible for hurting somebody bad enough to hurt themselves. I refuse to participate. And honestly, I hope all of my students feel the same way. I hope they refuse to participate in that kind of nonsense as well.
Yeah. And, it's kind of like I was telling one of my classes, talking about respect this week, that we should never force people to beg to be treated like a human.
No.
People don't, and I know
people shouldn't have to beg you to treat them in a nice manner. Now, it's one thing if they tell you, like if you call me sir, and I don't like being called sir, I could just tell you, hey, I don't really like going by sir. Would you call me this? That's fine.
Yes, sir.
That's not me begging. That's not me begging, right? But if I have to go and basically beg for you to treat me kindly, if I have to go and ask, why are you so like this with me? Why is it that you want to hurt me so bad? No one should ever have to beg to get treated like a human or to feel like they're a human being.
Yeah. I lost entirely where I was at. It's okay.
It's my fault.
It's all right.
You're saying no one should have to beg to be treated like a human.
Yeah, no one should, and so I know I have, for a lot of people, I have a controversial opinion on this, but I don't feel like people should earn respect. You don't earn my respect. You have my respect because
and you lose it.
You can
lose it, but you're going to have it right off the bat.
Well, you're not going to lose my respect because I'm always going to treat someone like a human being. But you might lose my trust.
You'll lose the trust and lose the attention.
Yeah,
right.
And so
you'll always have the respect, but if you do something wrong, you're going to lose my attention. You're going to lose my trust. I'm going to walk away from this relationship.
Yeah, but if I ran across you in the street and you said hi to me, I'm still going to say hi to you. Yeah, I'm still going to ask you how you're doing. I'm going to be professional and cordial and respectful.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I have to trust you and have you in my life. But I don't want anything bad to happen to you.
Right, and I can still respect the things about you that are good, the things about you that are whatever. I don't have to like your behavior to treat you with kindness.
Yeah. I'm never going to make someone beg to be treated like a human being because everybody has value. Yeah. Everybody is important. Everyone has something that's unique and wonderful about them.
That goes back to what we were talking about in last week's episode, and value. Think about that person before you want to be mean to that person. Think about if they were a baby, an infant in your arms right now, how valuable, on a scale of 1 to 100, would you think they would be? And then look at that adult in front of you again and go, well, I have to treat them the same way. This person's got good things about him, but I like that. No, I'm kind of the same way. It's not. Respect isn't something, in my opinion, to be earned. And that's not the only controversial opinion we have. Let's face it. We've got a lot of controversial opinions. I just put out a video on Facebook not long ago that was talking about how I don't understand where we got to this point that so many people have started seeing someone that thinks something differently as an enemy to be attacked, as a war to be had, as a conflict to be escalated, right? I can't understand why there's so many people out there trying to create that kind of drama. And I've lost students over it. It's crazy. There's been students that I had for 4 or 5 years training with me that I had many, many wonderful conversations with that one day would bring something up to me that they had a strong opinion about, and I would either say, well, I don't have an opinion about this, or honestly, I see it different. Have you ever thought of it this way? Have you ever thought of it this way? In a private conversation, to which they would be shocked and then quit our classes after 4 or 5 years just because I didn't buy into whatever they were buying into. And it astounds me. And I'm not mean about it, right? I'll just be kind about it. Like, I can see why you maybe believe that way. Me personally, I don't believe that. I see it this way, and I feel like it's none of my business. I don't want to bother with it, this, that, and the other. But then because I don't have an opinion on it, or because my opinion is different, I've had students who have known me for 5+ years quit on me, who we got along great, quit on me when I did not believe one thing that they believed, when I saw one thing different than the way they thought I saw it. You know what I mean? Because I'm a here and now person, right? I don't worry about eternities and afterlives. I worry about now. I worry about what kind of impact I can have. I worry about what kind of living creature am I. Am I bringing good and beauty to this world, or am I soiling it and making it worse? That's where my concern is, right? Most of it. And I've been very open and honest about that. But sometimes I'll have people come and give me some opinion about something, this, that, and the other, and I'll say, look, you've heard me give talks about respect. You've heard me give talks about courtesy. If you really think deep into the things that I have said and the way I talk about courtesy and respect and compassion and integrity, then you already know I'm not going to agree with you. You should already know me better than that. Because I tell you exactly how I feel about respect, just like we did in this video. I tell you exactly how I feel about courtesy. I tell you about how I feel about radical responsibility. I tell you about how I feel about integrity and keeping your word and things along those lines. So if I'm already telling you of all the things that I believe in, I can't understand how many people who will know me for 3, 4, 5 years will, after I've been telling them all the things I believe in through classes and stuff like that, will come to me with this, well, I think this should happen to this person, or I hate this person, or I think this should happen with this, or or this conspiracy or this or that or whatever it is, and they hear me say, well, I see it from the lens of respect. I see it from the lens of integrity. I see it from the lens of compassion, and give my opinion, how quickly they will throw away a relationship that has lasted for 3 to 5 years. Why? Why? I mean, I know you knew what I thought. I've always known what you thought too. You've been open about it. I've never given you a hard time for it. But the one time that you finally become convinced and realize that I don't see things the way you see them, suddenly you want to quit. But that's the thing. Of course I don't see things the way most people that come into our studio see them. That's why I'm a teacher at the studio. That's why we've gotten the success we have. That's why we give the messages we give. Because we want to make a good impact. And people recognize that. And we're trying to make a good impact. And people recognize that. Right? So I don't know where that comes from. I just put a video out about that on Facebook not long ago. But I don't know where that comes from. Thinking that if someone thinks different, that they are some kind of enemy. Guys, it all comes down to respect. Always look for the good.
And
your life will be so much easier if you practice kindness.
Yeah. And like I talked about during Perseverance Week, you shouldn't just give up on people because you don't like one thing about them.
Yeah. You're not going to like one thing about anybody you ever meet. There's going to be something you don't like about every single person you meet.
And so one opinion that you don't share, or even 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, shouldn't be the break in that relationship.
Yeah, just either avoid talking about it or enjoy debating it with each other. One of the two, right? You can do both.
Yep.
Just either avoid that subject or get some joy out of the fact that you guys see it differently and can have a little debate or spat about it, right? So the power of kindness, it'll change your life. It's how I avoided getting killed by 2 murderers in college. I done told that story earlier in this video, so make sure that you go back in the episode, check that out again if you missed that. It was about 20 minutes ago. I talked about the story of meeting a couple of murderers when I was in college and not getting murdered.
Yeah. And of course, you can always subscribe to our podcast wherever you enjoy podcasts. Look for #Teammate Talks.
Just search Teammate Talks.
And you can listen to a bunch of his life stories across all of those podcasts.
I do tell several life stories. See, that's what I tell people, right? When I run into those people that realize I see something a certain way and they go and they quit and stuff, that's what I tell them, though. I'm like, look, I have told you very personal stories about my life. You've seen them in our live videos on our podcast. You've seen them in the videos I post on Instagram. You've seen it in our class planners. You've seen it in our mat chats and stuff like that. I can't imagine how you'd have thought that I'd think any differently than what I'm telling you I think. I tell you exactly who I am. I do. Every day I tell you exactly who I am. And yet so many people for years will place these ideas as if I believe them, or these beliefs in my head that I don't necessarily hold. And then the second they realize I don't hold them, then suddenly, I have to hate this guy. He's now the enemy. And I don't get that.
But the people we learn the most from
are the ones who are the most different.
Yeah, should not be the people who are exactly like us. If you want a mirror, go find one.
Yeah.
If you want to grow, you have to find something different.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day that really sums this up well. And it was saying the greatest injustice that you can do to a child's education, the greatest injustice you could do to a child's education is to convince that child to hold people with the same opinion as them in a higher esteem than people with a different opinion from them. In all reality, that should be the other way around. You should learn to hold other people with different opinions, in a higher esteem than those who hold the same opinion as you, because it's in that difference where you get to learn something, where you can find some wisdom, where you get to and that's the beauty of it. You get to learn it without making the mistake. Here's the thing. You can go through life making all the mistakes and learning from them, or you can do that plus start looking at other people's stories and mistakes and learn from other people's too, so you never have to make that mistake yourself. That's kind of what I'm here for. I've made a lot of mistakes because I was a stubborn child that messed up a lot of things. But I tell these stories so y'all can learn from them. So y'all can learn from the stories of my youth and not make the same mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
All right, I think we've been doing this long enough.
Oh, it's almost an hour. I mean,
tired,
we can probably grab another hungry. 10 and no, we can drag this out for another 10 and a half minutes. Make it a full hour.
I'm not dragging this out for 10 and a half minutes. All right. So until we start to see you guys again, remember it's about respect, looking for the good in others. So be the best teammate you can be, and be the best at being you and not anyone else.